So, welcome to this talk. My name is Alexander Bell. Now, there's a million different things in this world that we can put our attention on. We can turn our eyes in a million different directions, if not more, and focus on anything we choose to focus on. And we have to remember that it's not just the material world that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the world of thought. We're dealing with the world of emotions. And we're dealing with the world of our own body and what we feel in our body. We're dealing with so many different levels, and we can put our attention anywhere among all these levels in a myriad different ways, a million, perhaps more, different areas to turn our attention to. And the consequences of putting our attention in any area, whatever it may be, the consequences of putting our attention there means that essentially becomes our reality. Our attention becomes consumed in this area that we're choosing to focus on. And that becomes our experiential, perceived reality. Just whatever we choose to focus on, we dive into its world. So this is why it's absolutely vital that the most careful choice we make in our life is the choice where to put our attention. Because it affects us on the most profound way imaginable. It's impossible to put it into words, the consequences upon our being of where we choose to put our attention. And really, if we look at our being and our body as a barometer, so that we can see the consequences of our choice by watching our body, and we can say, okay, so if I make that choice, then I feel this way, and if I make this other choice, then I sense something else going on in my body, or even on a mental level. We can experience the consequences of our choices. And so if we watch the consequences, if we keep our eyes, so we stay awake to make sure we're aware of what choices we're making mentally, and on other things like eating and speaking, the words we say, the actions we take. But if we be as aware as we can of that area of things, and then at the same time be aware of how we feel. Are we in a state of harmony? Are we feeling anxious or stressed, or are we feeling weak? And see the connection between the choices we make and the way we feel. Because the way you feel is the barometer of where you are at. If you are feeling joyful, if your heart's feeling nourished and free and open and happy, then that is a very, very good sign. It means you're doing something right. If you feel that in the depth of your heart, you are doing something very, very right. Because, how can I put this? It's almost like this. It's almost like a movie screen. When you go to a movie theatre, in the olden days, there'd be a projector, and there'd be film running through the projector. And so you have this small area of light shining from one side in the projector, this bulb shining through the film. And then it's magnified into this huge reality upon the movie screen. And all the people watching the movie are kind of, what's the word? They get deeply involved. They get immersed in this audio-visual experience because it's so big and it takes over their reality. So that's exactly how it is when we make a choice. When we make a choice of what we're going to focus on and get into that reality, into that area, and experience it, then basically we are moved, just like a movie. Maybe that's why it's called a movie, but a movie moves people. It emotionally moves people. And essentially that's the purpose of a really well-made film. It's to move people emotionally, because that's where the power is. The greatest power we have is in our emotions. It's this huge tidal wave of a force. It can be this huge tidal wave of a force. Of course, it can be also like a gentle wave, or it can even be like a still lake. Our emotions can be still, and we can feel the deep peace of being at rest. So the emotional realm is very, very significant. In fact, it's the most predominant, I feel, the most predominant reality that affects us in the most significant way, that is so immersive because it's so deeply felt. And that's why it's important that we're not generating emotions that are toxic, emotions that are poisonous, like anger, regret, guilt and animosity and hostility and the desire to see other people suffer, or this, this kind of drive of hostility that's kind of sweeping the world right now. Those are poisons, and they can be intense, depending on the emotion, depending on what choice you've made. Then they can be intense, and they can almost be like a living hell. Emotions, the wrong emotion, can be like a living hell. For example, if you think of the emotion terror, okay, nobody wants to be in a state of terror. Nobody. To be in a state of terror and not know that you can escape from that state of terror, for me that is the definition of hell. And we can be in that state without anybody interfering in our life. All it takes to generate that state is for our thoughts to go in a certain direction. And this is the dangerous thing. This is the dangerous thing, because the media is consciously, as a whole entity now, leading our mind in certain directions, leading our thoughts in certain directions, putting certain ideas in our mind, certain visions, which is why the media is so powerful, because it puts visions in our mind that are leading our thoughts to become more terrified, leading our thoughts to consider the really worst possibilities, really unpleasant, horrific, dark possibilities, because that's what's in the media. The media is flooded with some really evil messages, some really evil imagery, some really evil stories, and it's spreading, and I would say it's in the media at the moment, that is the greater force. That is the overwhelming theme, or how can you put this, flavour of the messages in the media. They're dark, they're steering towards the darkness, they're steering towards this realm of misery and pessimism and doom, and ultimately terror. And I believe that's intentional. Having studied the media for 20 years, I believe that, well, it's obvious to me, don't even believe it, it's obvious to me that it's intentional. There are evil forces, evil people who are hell-bent on steering people's minds into this place of terror, into this place of hopelessness. And they don't just want people to think it or consider it or imagine it. They want people to feel it, because that's what evil wants. Evil wants to create the greatest suffering it can, essentially the most efficient way it can, and that's why the media is just, how can I put this, the most fantastic tool in their eyes to hypnotize people and to drag people's minds into dark places. And for me, this is the very biggest threat that faces us right now as the human race. The sinister intentions of those who are in control of the media. And as I said, this isn't just some conspiracy theory. This is something I've researched for 20 years. And I've made many, many videos about showing clearly that this is the case. And all you have to do is look on my YouTube channel on the playlist called Evidence Videos. But anyway, that's another story. But the biggest threat, you see, we need to know what the biggest threat is. And the reason we need to know is because if we don't know what the biggest threat is, then it can approach us unawares. It can kind of reach out for us without us even realizing that it's a threat. And this is what the media has done. The media has become this friend that everyone turns to when they're bored. Everyone kicks off their shoes and sits back on their sofa with a glass of wine and enjoys their friend, the TV screen, enjoys the media, enjoys all these entertaining and intriguing and colourful and dramatic performances on their screens. Because people want to feel. People want to feel things. People get very frustrated when they're stuck in the mental realm, stuck in the realm of ideas. They get disconnected from their body, and they will eventually feel a sense of frustration. Because human beings like to feel. We forget that. We like to feel. And of course, the most obvious thing to state is that more than anything else, we like to feel joy. We like to feel happy. We like to feel free. We like to feel celebratory. We are designed to feel that way. Absolutely, our body and our mind and our heart is designed for this beautiful, healing, radiant energy of happiness and joy to be flowing through every cell for our blood to be enriched with those beautiful things. There's the energy of love, the energy of joy. It's just like, that's the food for our soul. In my opinion, that's what feeds our soul. So when we don't have that in our lives, when we don't have any joy, don't have any happiness, we don't feel free, we're constantly feeling negative, constantly feeling anxious, there's very little cause for celebration, then our soul starts to wither. It really does. Our soul starts to wither because it feeds off the creations of the light. The creations of the light. What do I mean by that? I mean the things that light creates in our heart, the emotions it creates. It creates joy. It creates rapture. It creates this amazing feeling of reverence. It's very, very hard to put into words because it's such a profound feeling. This sense of reverence, this sense of awe, and complete union with something way more profound than you. This is what we need. We really, really need this. And you could call that the transcendent experience. And it's crucial. It's absolutely crucial because, as I said, it feeds the deepest part of our soul, which doesn't get nourished by anything else. That deepest part of our soul cannot receive nourishment from anything else other than that complete reverent transcendence and union with what you might call the divine. That's what that deepest part of us needs, and it's what every human being is longing for. What every human being is looking for is this transcendent, divine experience. So, of course, we're looking in all the wrong areas, and essentially, while we're looking in the wrong areas, we're being preyed upon by the media. The media is preying upon all of us because it is poisoning our minds, and as I said, leading us to contemplate ideas that will bring about a state of fear, a greater state of fear, a heightened state of fear, a state of terror, of feeling absolutely petrified. The media is doing that consciously. And just look at my videos about the pop industry and the messages in the pop music being aimed at young girls, and all. If you just explore for yourself, if you just do some research, look at the lyrics in the pop songs, look at the themes, the overriding themes of movies and the messages they're putting out, and of all these TV programs which are kind of multiplying exponentially. And they're always about dark subjects. It's always a dark theme, or more often than not, a dark theme. And so just be aware of this. If you watch TV, if you consume the media in any way, even if you listen to the radio and listen to the pop music, just be aware. Are you getting light? Is it giving you light? Is it giving you something really positive? Not just an idea, not just some kind of a message, some kind of political message or something positive, but actually a good feeling. Does it lift your heart? Is it inspiring you? Is the music you're listening to, is the music on the radio inspiring you? Genuinely inspiring your heart and lifting your heart to experience these feelings of positivity, feelings of happiness and joy. Are the movies doing the same thing? Are all these TV programs you're watching doing the same thing? Are the podcasts you're listening to doing the same thing? Because we are choosing our food. We are choosing our spiritual food by choosing what we give our attention to. And that means what we listen to, what we look at with our eyes, and other things like what we eat, these environments we place ourselves in, the people we socialize with, the ideas we allow to kind of be considered in our own mind. These are all choices. And if you make intelligent choices, if you make the most intelligent choices you can, then you are going to experience the highest reality you can. And the highest reality is something that we don't even need to bother putting into words. We just have to go there. We don't have to conceptualize it, even discuss what it might be, or words are completely insufficient. So what we should focus on is going there through making the right choices. Our awareness ascends, our mind ascends into higher realms with greater ideas and greater light and greater beauty when we make higher choices. When we make choices that are very careful and considered, that don't encourage us or don't allow us to poison ourselves in any way with anything which is less than what we deserve. We deserve, it's almost like a beautiful car, a beautiful expensive car. You've just bought it, it cost you like £70,000 or whatever. It's a luxury car, and you love that car. You go to fill it up with petrol for the first time after having driven it, and you're going to put in the best petrol in that petrol station. You're going to get the best fuel because the car is something special. The car is something pure that you want to look after. And the same is true with our own heart, but our heart is the significance and the profundity and the magnificence of our heart cannot be understood. We cannot understand how magnificent the human heart is and what it's capable of. All we can recognize is that it is deeply magnificent. It's the greatest jewel, in my opinion, in the universe, in the entire universe, is the human heart. And so, just like this car that we love, we want to take care of that. We want to look after it. We want it to work and thrive and do its job really well and purr and hum. Just like the car, our heart purrs and hums with a state of harmony when it's running properly, when it's being fueled correctly, when it's not dealing with toxic energies like resentment and anxiety and sadness and grief and our heart is in our hands. Our heart is not in anybody else's hands. Our heart is in our hands, and we have to make the choices that are best for our heart, that we intuitively know are best for our heart. We have to, because nobody else will. And if we don't make those choices, then our choices will be directed by the hypnotic media, and that's what the media is trying to do. The media is trying to hypnotize you into making choices, psychological choices even, to veer towards negative thinking, to veer towards fear, to veer towards overconsumption, to veer towards laziness, to veer towards being scared for your safety, to veer towards feeling like you want to shout at people who are stopping you being free. And just the media, if we could just understand how much the media is manipulating us, we would switch it off immediately. And I switched it off quite a long time ago, and I recommend you switch it off. You switch off all the negativity, you switch off all the fear, you switch off all the confusion, so much confusion, all the speculation, all the arguing. You don't need the energy of argument going in your eyes and your ears, as I said. This is food. The sounds you hear and the things you see and the ideas you consider is food for your soul. And you have a job now to feed your soul with the best food available. That is your job. That's always been your job. When your mother stopped feeding you, when your mother and father stopped feeding you, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically, it became your job. Ideally, they taught you. They would have taught you how to make really intelligent choices that nourish you, intelligent choices that benefit your heart and soul, benefit your mind. Intelligent and positive choices. Ideally, that's what our parents should have taught us. Of course, that's not the case with, I would say, the majority of the people on this planet. That is not the case. Our mother and father did not guide us towards taking care of ourselves because they weren't taking care of themselves. They didn't really understand how to nourish themselves. They didn't understand how to care for themselves because they weren't shown it. They weren't modeled it. They didn't see it in their own lives. They never truly understood their responsibility, their enormous responsibility to nourish themselves, to make the choices which brought more light and joy and freedom into their heart. If only all parents would make that their priority, with demonstrating, not only to their children, but to the people around them, the power of your choices and what it does to your mind and what it does for your heart. So this is essentially what I want to share with you in this talk. I never know where these talks are going to go. I start on one subject and, my mind gets taken off by, I don't know, God or something like that. And it gets taken off into these connected issues, which all support one thing. So I've been talking about several different areas of things. Essentially, they all support one thing. All these different areas They're the supports. They're the legs for this greater thing. And I'm not going to even attempt to put this greater thing into words. As I said, the most important thing is that we experience it, this greater thing, this greater divine beauty. I guess those are descriptive words, the best I can give at this moment.